do. It's thinking. It's thinking. We're live. Yay!
All
Hi,
right.
Ahmed.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? Welcome to Facebook Live, your first ever. I love that I get to be your first ever Facebook Live. This makes me really excited and happy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first one ever, and it's I'm horrified. I'm terrified, obviously, just of the massive
It'll be fine. It'll be
amount
fine.
of people who are watching this.
Sometimes thousands of people watch my Facebook Lives. It makes me happy.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
How are you doing?
So I am so good. I am so happy to have you here with us today. So you are a special guest in my feminism series. So I'm doing a series with where I'm interviewing my favorite feminists that I love and trying to expose the work of people who don't necessarily get to connect all the time to my audience. So I'm super happy you're here. For those of you that don't know Ahmed, he is the co-founder, president, and editor-in-chief of Rant, R-A-N-T-T Media. We met in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago. I can't believe all that time has passed, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's been forever.
I know, it has been forever. We met at a conference in D.C. For the American Women's Party. And Ahmed is responsible for my Twitter magic, which I'm so excited. I can't believe my Twitter is like blowing up. It's really great. So I credit that all to you.
You're crushing it on there.
I'm totally killing it. It's so fun. So welcome to Facebook Live. I would love it if you would just talk a little bit for our audience about how you got into, why you decided to start Rant Media.
Okay. Well, so why we really wanted to start Rant in the first place, we started it back in about 2014-ish, and I was about 21 at the time. And I mean, although like the product has changed over time, it was a tech platform before, kind of a social network, hence the name Rant.
Yep.
But really what we wanted to do is get young people engaged in politics. That was, the original mission. And over time that just evolved into, it became a media publication in which now we create informative content. We do, journalism. We cover the Trump administration. And really what we wanted to do is create a more informed populace, fill the civic education gap that really leaves a lot of our youth uninformed and unequipped to really kind of grapple with the political realities of the day. And that's really what drives what we do at Rant. And I appreciate you spelling it too at the beginning, because the two T's sometimes throws people off, but that's why we started it, because we really wanted to get young people more involved. And now our audience has grown, of course, to all demographics, but it's really about just sticking to the mission of informing people.
So when you decided to start Rant Media and you were like, let's just get young people involved, right? You must have ran into some obstacles along the way. So what drive, you're like, just a few. What drives you to continue your work in the face of obstacles?
Well, at the underlying foundation of all of it is, of course, just believing in what you do. If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, you might as well not start. Especially if you're just in it for money, if you're just in it for ego or vanity purposes, or you're not in it for the cause, you'll quit when times get tough. And so when we have obstacles, or when I'm experiencing, personal issues, or if investments don't come through, or deal falls, or something happens, and all the roadblocks of entrepreneurship and just life in general, you stay focused, because the cause is bigger than you and your personal motive. So I guess what really keeps me focused and going past obstacles is just recognizing that it's all happening to help me grow and help build me up to where I need to go, and also just believing in what I'm doing, or else I would have quit 5 years ago.
Yeah. So how old were you when you started Rant?
21.
Wow. So you've been doing this for a while.
Since 2014. So now I'm 27.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for a while. And I'm guessing that you might have experienced some imposter syndrome in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you fight imposter syndrome and feeling inadequate about your skills, education, or ideas that you have?
Well, essentially, that happens with a lot of people when they're doing something that kind of intimidates them, or because for me, journalism wasn't what I studied in school, and I actually left school in the middle of it to build this. And sometimes you feel like, am I in over my head? Am I qualified? Am I, especially when you're doing something where you might be in a public facing role, and especially when you get trolls and you get inundated with various people who try to validate your imposter syndrome or the fact that you're doubting yourself. I guess one of the things that gets me through it is, just realizing that, sometimes what makes you qualified is the fact that you're the only one doing it, is the fact that you're in the fight in general and you're willing to put yourself out there. I do a lot of, you said, I think the question was along the lines of like, what habits do I do to break imposter syndrome?
Yeah, how do you fight your imposter syndrome?
Well, you got to just remind yourself that you are who you say you are, and really just kind of making character affirming choices that remind you, that keep you within your character. Affirm that you are who you say you are by your actions, and eventually imposter syndrome goes away because you will no longer doubt. I'm sure you know all about this. Like, the longer you're in the fight and the more you realize, oh, I am who I say I am. I've been in this for so long and been just working on this cause that it becomes over time impossible to have imposter syndrome when you just, and of course, as when you're a woman or you're a minority, it's sometimes confidence. You can have confidence issues when you're in a world of people in an industry where people don't, there's not many media executives that are, that look like me or are my age even. And sometimes you'll be like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? But you got to do a lot of stuff. am I really doing this? But you got to do, all that about that. But you got to do a lot of self-talk and remind yourself. Just it all goes back to believing what you're doing and the mission at hand. If you got a good enough mission, then you just stay the course, and then over time, the reoccurring character affirming choices you make will just make you realize that you are who you say you are.
I think the thing that's really critical about what you just said too is this idea of really believing at your core in what you're doing. So you mentioned, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, what the hell's the damn point, right? And
exactly.
So I think that what I love about this conversation about what you're saying is, you are a young Black man who is running an independent media company, which nobody loves the independent media, right? That's you guys are troublemakers. You're disrupting the status quo. I tell people about about Rant and you all the time, because you are the only media organization that has tracked the Trump administration every week since they started in 2017. Your archives in and of themselves are so incredible. And you all are doing it independent. So you get investors, you have people subscribe. And I think that it's really powerful what you all are doing. I think it's really powerful. So in this journey, do you have one or more definable moments that have made you into the man that you are? And I know a little bit about your story, but I'd love for you to share some of your story with my viewers. But what are the most definable moments in your journey that have led you to where you are now at 27?
Well, it's definitely a loaded question because, as you know, this part, it takes this is where you have to make a choice where, you can be, I've decided to be vulnerable and allow myself to tell the parts of my story that actually made me what I am. And it was failures, it was adversity. It was, I don't get too much into my childhood, but essentially there were things that happened that made me prone to drinking when I got into high school, right? So the story of how I got to this company actually begins in high school for me. And I was a heavy drinker within then. And I was very smart always, got good grades, but I was a partier, a party animal. And the seminal moment for me that shifted me into this mode that I'm in now. Because as you know, I've been sober for 5 years as well. I quit. I got into DUI when I was 18, and a minor car accident. It wasn't too crazy, but it was enough to shock me, wake me up out of the stupor I was in. And then from there, I really just, I've always had political leanings. I've always wanted to make a difference when I was younger, but then kind of lost my way in high school. And for me, what crystallized, it was that moment of that was like the ultimate imposter syndrome, or the ultimate doubt in yourself when you tell yourself you're one thing, and then, for me in that moment, all I cared about was just popularity and partying. And then I got in this accident, and then it woke me up to redefine my goals. And that kind of just set me on a path towards like self-progression. And I went and worked in the tech industry immediately, or after. Well, I worked at IHOP first, but you got to get in there somewhere.
That's right.
But that set me on a course that made me like, from that, I know I quit at 22, but for me, the sobriety was a big thing for me, because since then, since the DUI, I started learning lessons, started shedding parts of myself that limited me. And then that's how I was able to get to the point where I was able to, quit my job and then start this. And because I just, I started taking my life more seriously then, I mean, of course I still have fun and, laugh.
Sure.
Humor is literally the only thing that keeps me sane, because like you said, we document Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
And he's not the chillest guy. He's not very chill. No. So you got to have a steady mind. And for me, it was that accident. It was actually adversity that helped me become someone focused on personal growth, to get me to a place where I'd be able to deal with the ups and downs of what I'm doing currently, and the obstacles that, of course, you mentioned at the beginning of this. So that was
clarity that comes with sobriety, because there's clarity that comes with sobriety, right? Like when you're sober, you become real clear real quick. So are there some tangible, specific habits, like 3 or 4 things that you do to counter negative self-talk and to really bring yourself back to center? I mean, you mentioned the trolls earlier. I'm sure you get trolled like crazy for what you're doing and the truth that you're reporting online. So what are some like 3 or 4 tangible, specific habits that you have to counter negative self-talk?
Well, I meditate. Meditating is a really important one. And sometimes you don't have to like go crisscross applesauce, Buddhist music and Zen mode to do it. You can just
crisscross applesauce.
Yeah, you don't have to do all that.
I used to be a preschool teacher, so that's like my favorite thing. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I can't even do it at this point because it's too hard. I'm ancient.
You're not all about it.
Yeah. No, you can like be simple, standing in the shower and just like quieting your mind, just staying centered. That's one of the things is meditation. Also, if you find yourself veering off into like just a negative spiral of thought, just like beating yourself down and downing yourself, I guess before I get there, I'll say just put on some music. Sometimes just take a break. Yeah. If your mind is just going down this path, just put on some Bob Marley. There is nothing like some good Bob Marley or just some relaxing music that can get you back into the zone of like, let me just remind myself that everything's going to be okay in the end, and everything that's happening is happening for me. Remind yourself that it's just everything's meant to strengthen you. So that's a second one. And the third one I'd say is just, lean into your craft, like when things are going really, sometimes my mind will get, veer off on something just like, oh, what are you doing? Or like this negative talk. I'll just like go, all right, when in doubt, I just work, when in doubt, hone into the thing that you love and then just focus, zero in focus. Just give yourself unadulterated focus on the craft. And then after a few hours pass, you realize you just got a whole bunch of stuff done and you don't even remember what you were kind of worrying about earlier. And suddenly you're kind of less worried because you just did a bunch of tasks that got you closer to your goals. And now you're kind of feeling good about yourself.
I really needed to hear that one.
Yeah, you know all about that. Like when you get stuck in the mode of worry, like you're just like, oh, what? Oh, this bill's coming, or like, oh, I got to meet this goal. But you realize the longer you worry, you sit there worrying about the goal. But my AirPods are just like,
you're fine.
Sorry if they're making
still hear you.
You can still hear me. you get these things, it's expensive as hell, and they just lop out for no reason. But so yeah, you just get stuck in the worry mode.
Yeah.
And then it's better the more time you spend worrying, the further away your goals are being pushed. So might as well just nip it in the butt and then just zero in, focus on the work, and then now your worry disappears because now you're getting stuff done. You deal with that all the time, right?
I do, but I forget to focus. Like that's like the thing that I get up in that worry, right? And then I'm like, just work, Missy. Just focus on what you love. I love how you say it though, because you hear like get you through your to-do list, or have a task list, or don't have a task list, don't have a to-do list. Like there's a million pieces of advice. But what I love about what you just said is do what you love, like hone your craft. And so if you're getting all up in your head, do what you love and do your craft and focus on that. And then the time just flies. I love that. I had a friend yesterday. My son got a concussion because he fell on the playground. And we were at the
I'm sorry to hear that.
for like ever yesterday. And he's fine. He's okay.
He's doing better.
But I was really like up in my head because I wasn't working, right? And I like really had to be like, okay, I'm just gonna hang out with my man, my little dude, right? But someone while I was at the hospital sent me a message, an audio message that said, just remember that all of this is temporary. This too will pass. She had no idea what I was doing. None.
Look at that.
She sent this message to me. They said, this is all temporary. It's going to pass. Everything's going to be fine. And what you're talking about, especially for those of us that are in the public light and doing stuff online and really analyzing this presidency and what's happening in the world, like we really have to talk to ourselves and remember why we're doing what we're doing, and remember that it's temporary. So I love that your things involve meditation too, because I feel say it.
No, I'm saying like, that's what it comes down to. The meditation is about staying present, because that's the key. Remind yourself this too shall pass, and that like one of the things I've always got in the habit of is like you can choose to learn from hardship, or you can choose to proactively learn before the hardship comes and avoid the hardship. Like, so if you look back, you can sit there and pout about something, right? Like, oh, this just happened, or like, well, after my DUI, I thought I was a failure, and I was like, oh, But you can just hit yourself and say, no, I'm going to define this circumstance. And if you look back at your life, you realize, I'm alive. Number one, that's a great blessing. Number two, everything that's happened is kind of worked out, like, because I'm still here. I mean, and it's ended up strengthening me. I've learned lessons. So why is this time going to be different? If everything else worked, why am I so worried about some existential dread about this bill or this task, or whether this is going to work out when it always has worked out, And that's whether this too shall pass comes in. It's like, just staying present and recognizing that you can never judge a moment in that moment. You have to wait and view it through the contextualized wisdom of hindsight.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea where this hardship is going to lead you, Yeah. If I teleported to my 18-year-old self after my DUI, that felt like a failure, and was like, dude, you're going to be, running a media company when you're 20, by the time you're in your 20s, and you're going to be doing all this great work, and Trump will be president. So let me terrify you first and let you know that, like, like basically there's a lot of things, unbelievable things will happen, and you don't know what's coming. You don't know what blessing is around the corner. Yeah. So there's no need to worry. It's already bad enough, whatever's happening, So might as well not worry and add another layer. And if you get trolled, just laugh it off.
What has this Trump presidency meant to you?
Personally, okay. It's, at first it was just really shocking, and kind of sad and angering, and, you think America is this great thing. But then you realize that I apply the same thing I was just saying by living present in this moment. For me, it's just kind of been a wake-up call about why it's so important about why what I'm doing is so important, and about why what we're all doing is so important, and about why, he kind of woke everybody up to the fragility of, democracy. I know you said me personally, but I was thinking in terms of the wider effects. It's just, it isn't new, you know, like segregation just ended 60 years ago. You know, people act like, oh, why do you want to talk about racism, or why do you want to talk about slavery? It's like, I couldn't go to the same bathroom as you 60 years ago. So you gotta, you know, so for me, it's not surprising.
You and I couldn't have gotten married like 40 years ago.
Exactly, right?
Ago, right?
Exactly. And that would have been terrible, you know? And that's the thing, like people, so for me, it exposed the underbelly of America that's been sitting there since Andrew Johnson botched Reconstruction. Like, that's what we're seeing is like the resurgence. This is like, you know, and not all of his supporters, of course, for anyone who's watching who, you know, might be a Trump supporter out there. Of course, not all Trump supporters are bigots or anything. And a lot of them thought he was going to give them economic opportunity. And he's coasting off the Trump economy, the Obama economy, and he's claiming as if he is the one who did it. But, you know, it's, for me, it just kind of reminded me that everyone needs to be activated. You know, if everyone exercises their power, if every millennial in the country voted who's eligible this election season, Democrats would take the entire Senate, the House, and we could immediately execute on climate change initiatives. Like, it just kind of just woke me up to the fact that there is a Republican apparatus that has been at work for decades, pushing their agenda with billions of dollars into the media, which is how we got Fox News, and the left just wasn't prepared. The left just was not prepared. And although we know Obama did lead an excellent movement into the White House in 2008, there is no, it's a wide tent. So I know I kind of went down a rabbit hole when you asked me what it meant to be personally, but for me, it just signaled that we've got a long way to go, and that everyone has to do everything that, like, for me, it meant I couldn't quit. Like, I had no choice during hard times.
Yeah.
Because there's
you can't quit.
Yeah. That was, I guess, what it meant for me personally. I can't quit.
Nope. What is the most misunderstood myth about the word feminism?
That only women can be feminists.
Tell us more.
I think that's a myth, because feminism, by definition, is literally just the belief that basically all people, and women included, deserve equal rights, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, say what you think it is.
Well, I mean, that's the actual definition. So it's like, so if it's the belief that all people are created equal and that women deserve equal rights, I'm a feminist, you know?
Yeah.
Feminism isn't they're not just, you know, the way it tries to get branded, like it's only a female thing, or
lesbian witchcraft.
Yes, I didn't want to go there, but yes, that's exactly how it's branded. You know, and you said it for me. Thank you. But like that's how it gets branded, and that's not what it is at all. You know, women need allies to be there to help promote initiatives of equality, or it's not going to get done. And so that's, I think, the myth is that only women can be feminists, when I think everyone who believes in equal rights is by definition a feminist. As they don't want to say it, and that's on them. But we're all feminists if we're on the right side of history. Swear word,
the big F word.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's your 3 surprise questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What is the most important thing people need to know about the media in 2020?
What is the most important thing that people need to know about the media in 2020? That's a loaded question. The most important thing people need to know about the media in general is that there are parts of the media that are actually lying, and it's not the side of the media that Trump is saying it is. MSNBC and CNN. I think I just want to take the moment to debunk one of the biggest things I keep hearing, especially from people my own age, that say CNN and Fox News are two sides of the same coin, or things of that nature. That, you know, I think the number one thing people need to know about the media is that there is actually a vector of the media, and the right-wing media. I'm not saying this to be biased, it's objectively true, that will literally say, Trump didn't say what he just said 5 minutes ago, or who will push a narrative that coronavirus isn't as deadly as it is, or who will actually lie to benefit the president. There's actually a wing of the media that you need to watch out for.
Mhm.
Don't trust anything you see on Fox News. And I'm not saying that to fearmonger, but it's just the truth.
Mhm.
If they published conspiracy theories. They said Seth Rich, a dead Democratic staffer, was the one responsible for the DNC leaks
Right.
and terrorized their family. Sean Hannity had to apologize for that. They've actually published verifiably false conspiracy theories, including some that are pushed directly from Russia. So I'd say the biggest thing people need to keep an eye on the media is that both sides are not the same. And you need to really be vigilant, especially on Facebook, because Trump is pushing billions of dollars into, or at least $1 billion into Facebook ads. Mm-hmm. So be mindful of propaganda. Mm-hmm. I would say that's just there's some craziness going on.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because my husband's newsfeed is very different than mine, because my husband is a 2-time Army War veteran, right? Mm-hmm. He's still connected to many people from the military. That's how he keeps track of his friends from his unit, his buddies that he fought with, many of whom tend to veer towards more conservative right-wing ideology. And so his news feed in Facebook is way different than mine.
I can't imagine.
I don't see what he sees. We lay side by side on Facebook at the same time, and we could sit side by side, and his feed and my feed are entirely different. And
that's a scary thing,
Yes.
They're literally curated, especially Facebook, because Zuckerberg has been terrible with what he's allowing on there. They're literally curated realities.
Yeah.
Alternate realities in which people can live in, where the algorithm will just feed you, reinforce your worldview, whether the worldview is false or whether it's true. And Facebook's doing absolutely no fact checking on political ads. They decided to take their hands off the steering wheel and just decide that, they've already destroyed democracy once. And I used to be an admirer of Zuckerberg when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Young entrepreneur, you're like, oh, wow, look, this guy did it. And then you come to realize that he might have actually been doing it just for the money. And when you don't do the fact checking necessary, that's what's happening in the media and on Facebook. These apps are just, like you said, you have two different, I'm sure in your feed, you're seeing, during impeachment, you're probably seeing like Nancy Pelosi, Schiff gives historic speech about X, he's up there killing it. You see this, you see Donald Trump's abuse of power. He might be seeing his friends posting, Hunter Biden sat on a board of Burisma, just like just the dribble, and
lots of stuff about lots of fear mongering on his side, like lots of paranoia. It's really quite fascinating, and he and I have talked extensively about it because his friends are believing it, and it's freaked him out. I'm like, why are you still friends with these people? And he's like, well, because we fought in a war together. Like, it's really hard to separate yourself from that, and it's cost him a lot of conflict. It's been really fascinating, and I think it's just really, I just love how you just brought up that people need to know that some of this shit just is patently untrue, and we need to, which is why it's really important to have media sources like you guys who are actually reporting real news. My second question for you is, do you have a gratitude practice? And if you do, what is it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't do it enough, but I try my best to do it when I'm like meditating, It's, just to go inward when you're, and just kind of focus on all the beautiful things going on in your life and, the people that are around and the fact that you're alive, the fact that, just the blessings, but just the house that you're in, and not just the things, but just the existence you have, and trying to, I guess what I do when I'm meditating sometimes in the morning, especially if you're having, this is another solution, the habit to stop negative thoughts, is to just kind of recognize how blessed you are, to just exist. And honestly, we're, regardless of all the stuff that's going on with Trump and everything, we're living in the greatest time in human history. Just period, like objectively, like we're living, if Trump wasn't president right now, the biggest story would be the fact, like, if let's say Trump wasn't president, Al Gore won in 2000, you know, we would be combating climate change, and like the biggest story would be the technological revolutions we have here. Like, we're living in another industrial and technological revolution right now. We have self-driving cars. We've got green tech going on. We've got so many solutions to the issues we have right in front of us. So I'd say just like being grateful for existing in this moment in time, and just all the resources that are our hands. Like, I mean, I can Google literally anything right now and I have the answer. Like, so I guess my gratitude practice is literally just when I'm meditating, I'll put myself in perspective and kind of look how far we've come. It's not even just like what's going on in my personal life, but humanity in general. In America, how much we progress and learn from our issues, you know?
Yeah.
Look how far we've come just the past like 4 years, you know?
So great. I love that so much. That's so good. So I talk a lot about trusting your instinct and trusting the niggle, you know, like when that little voice inside of you is like, go do this. So what is your niggle feeling, your instinct feeling telling you about what's next?
Okay, so what is like my intuition telling me?
Yeah.
About what's next for the country or in general?
And for you, for the country, however you want to answer it. You can answer it any way you want.
Okay. Well, for me, you know, Rant's doing pretty well, so that's cool. I see a lot of cool things in the future for me personally, so I'm feeling good about that. For the country, I think good things are coming. I think even though regardless of all that's happening in Trump wrecking, you know, seemingly eroding democracy, with, you know, we don't need to get into all those details now, but I do think positive things are coming.
Yeah.
And I do think he'll lose in November.
Do you?
I do think he'll lose.
I don't think he's going to.
I didn't think so. I think just because I'm always hopeful and I'm optimistic, but you know, even if he doesn't, we will survive. You know, we will survive. You know, I just think that everything that happens is supposed to mold. It's like, I think on the personal level, things that happen are supposed to mold you to grow. I think the same thing's happening at the American level, at the governmental level. Like, Trump came in to remind everybody, hey, 45% of you who didn't vote, wake up. You know, politics used to be the only thing that mattered, and now people are like, I don't want to get political, when this is kind of what the whole thing is about.
The personal is political. Everything is political.
It's a relatively new phenomenon that people say, I don't want to talk about politics, when it's relatively new. Like, I mean, go back to Vietnam, you know, go back into those days where this is all that, especially even before, you know, gossip columns came along and, you know, reality TV. I mean, this is what we were founded on, you know, like politics is everything. I think young people especially, are waking up to the fact that there are old white men in a chamber legislating your life, literally. Like, whenever someone tells me politics doesn't matter, I'm like, there are old white men dictating your future, and they're in their 70s. They don't care about anything but putting conservative judges in their place. Like, you know, so I guess for me, the question is about what my intuition says is coming. I guess what I could say specifically is that people are waking up to their personal, you know, we had Instagram come in, and at first, social media came in, at first it appealed to the surface level of people's, you know, it amplifies the good and the bad. It amplifies a lot of people's narcissism at first. Obviously, everyone just posting, you know, trying to amplify their superficial parts of their life. But now the next wave comes, where everyone's now this level playing field of social media. How are people going to use their voice? You know, and I think people are waking up to the fact that, do you hear that dog barking on this, or is it?
No.
Good? Okay, all right.
No, you're fine.
My puppy's up there freaking out. People are waking up to their personal and political power, I think, is something we're going to see over the 20s.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. I hope all those millennials get out there and vote, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's critical.
These are wild times. It's funny, like, sometimes, You
I
have
wish
these
I had
conversations.
some of your optimism, because I really don't. Like, I'm
You don't think he's gonna win?
oh no, I
Or
think
lose?
Trump's gonna win, and I think we are in for. I think well, I think that the democracy has to collapse more for people to really wake up, and I think that because even 10 years ago when I was working at Planned Parenthood in Utah, you know, we would talk to women, and we would phone bank women, and we would talk to women about getting involved politically, and they would be like, "Oh, I need to talk to my husband about who I'm voting for," and I'd be like, "Okay." Right? Like, and I would have women say, you know, this doesn't affect me because I can still get my birth control, and I still have access to medical care, and I have a good job, and I make good money, so this doesn't bother me. This doesn't affect me. And so I kind of, while it seems contradictory, I kind of welcome the collapse a little bit more, because I think people need to be woken up a little bit more. And I don't think that is particular for people of color. I think it's very particular for white women. And
well, I think luckily they're coming around. I think they're coming around.
I think so. I think they
2018, because see, it's because I mean, the thing is, what it comes down to is you're right to an extent. A lot of people don't wake up to things until they're personally affected. You know, I talk to a lot of, I mean, I live in Northern Virginia, you know, and a lot of, you know, friends and old friends who tell me, oh, the stock market's doing well, as if Trump has some kind of dial where he's turning and he doesn't control that. And that's not the economy, but that's a story for another day. They say the stock market's doing well, their wallets are looking good, so they're fine.
Yeah.
And I do think that while you're right, I mean, I hope that this was enough. I hope the last 4 years were enough for most people, because luckily for younger generations, I think especially the fact that I think just if you look at the trends in the data, there's a empathy wave coming here. There's a new like. Now we're seeing the next wave of what social media has done in general. Like we saw it, now we're all interconnected. And a lot of people don't remember this, but just 20 years ago, we had dial-up, you know, like I remember it. You know?
I remember that.
Older millennials remember it. My little sister doesn't, but older millennials do. And it's like, this is new. All this stuff is new. So this is so new, even though it feels like it's been around for ages. And now we're hitting the stage of interconnectivity when we're hearing each other's stories. We're all kind of caring about each other. There's a reason why the younger generation cares about climate change. We're developing, or at least I hope, and maybe an optimistic prediction is that maybe as this new empathy wave comes, we don't really need a new, more collapse to the point where like a draft is what woke people up in Vietnam. You know, there's something, the Iraq war is what woke people up because they had their family members who were out in war and people they knew were dying. Yep. But I hope we don't have to go there, because I think empathy I think that's one of the reasons why Biden won, to be honest, the Super Tuesday yesterday.
I hope you're
right. Because I saw his town hall last week, and I think people are yearning for, I hear some pundits talk about it, they're yearning for connectivity again. And I think the empathy, people might not need to be personally affected by the erosion of democracy. I think they're going to be able to, or I hope that there's a wave of people who are now seeking to feel each other's pain and then therefore act on their behalf.
I hope so too. I really do. I hope you're right. I'm going to hold on to that. And you're because I love it. Also,
so do you have enough more time? Or?
No, you're fine. Also what?
Yeah, I was going to say, just one of the reasons why I think Trump's going to lose, data-wise, is because just how the Trump phenomenon was missed in 2016, polling-wise. I think they overcorrected, and I think polling is missing the Trump opposition currently. Yeah. You see the poll rings in those they're using old turnout models.
Yeah.
That I don't think will be replicated this time in 2020. I think young people will be higher. I think people of color will be higher. I mean, look at what they just did. And yesterday, Black people just propelled Biden to it's another story. But I think also there's actual hard data from, if you look at old Gallup polling, over the past 10 years, the amount of people who identify as conservative has gone down, I think 5% or so, and the amount of people who identify as liberal has gone up. There's a lot of evidence that Trump's base has shrunk, and that we're literally modeling a minority, and kind of like the polling and the modeling might actually be amplifying and over exaggerating his base of support. In my opinion, I think the polling models are kind of overbalance to the point where it's creating a false equivalency between the support. I hope I'm right. I'm right, and we go into November, and then we just see a landslide. We're just like, oh, did not see that coming.
I think it's going to affect things at the local level too, and I think that's really critically important for people to remember. This isn't just about the federal government, and it's not about the presidency. This is about what are we doing at a local level, and who are we voting for at a local level, and how are we propelling those people up to the top. So
it's about down ballot races. That's what it's all about.
So important. How can people find you, my friend?
Okay, so you can find me at Ahmed Baba, AhmedBaba _ on Twitter. You can find Rant at Rant Media, RANTT Media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us there. Rant.com. Everywhere, we're out here posting great articles. We're doing our thing. We're trying our best to spread truth. And that's where I'm at. That's where
your news is so good. It's my favorite news ever.
Thank you.
Hold tight, my friend. Thank you all for being here and joining us on Facebook. And join me next Wednesday for my next special guest. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Ahmed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.